This is Cameron from out in West Texas, and you're listening to the Two Trees Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Two Trees Podcast. And boy, oh boy, do we have a good one planned for you today. And I'll tell you why, because this podcast has none other than the one, the only bearded man. I guess there's more bearded men in the world, but John Dillon is the one I'm talking about.
Hello, hello.
There he is. And today we have not Rosemary Moeller. We have what some say is an upgrade, which some say is a huge upgrade, Miss Erin Dillon.
Hello.
Hello.
That's my wife.
Yeah, so we have a good one. My name is Martin Listener, the official intro man of Season 3. Man, you'd think I'd be able to say my own name after I've done it 500 times already this year. And
Well, you've been at the fair a lot, and so all of those tenderloins and funnel cakes have got to be affecting your
yeah,
your
I'm on a
brainwaves.
sugar high and a fried food high, probably
Excellent.
a little bit. So we're doing just fine. But if you are enjoying the podcast, which obviously you are because this is like our almost 150th episode and you're still listening, go to the Facebook page. It's just facebook.com. I'm sure you've heard of that. And you probably have something on there. You can search for the twotreespodcast.com. Click on us and follow us. Doesn't cost you anything. We don't like spam you with a bunch of stuff like buy our cryptocurrency or anything like that. It's just straight content regarding what we're doing on the podcast, what we're doing outside the podcast, including the conference, which the conference will be on there. It's also on our website, the twotreespodcast.org. The conference is very great way, I think, of getting together with people around you. We had some very smart people that put together some lectures that you can listen to on the website, then get together with yours, family, and friends, or random people at the coffee shop, we always say, and talk about the subject matter. And then you get to talk to us about the subject matter through live events, and then even the author of the subject matter through another live event. And if you miss all of that, it's on the archive online as well. So if this is the first time you've ever listened to us, go to the twotreespodcast.com. So much more good information.
No, don't go there.
Excuse me, the twotreespodcast.org.
There's where you want
O-R-G at the end there. And you can see all of the stuff, including our smiling faces on there and our very best pictures. But that's pretty much all I have for this. So let's get right into the good stuff.
Yeah, we have never had my wife on an episode before. So, Erin, thank you for coming. And
She didn't
being
do the
part
one
of
with all
this.
the girls?
Nope.
No, she has been firm in her insistence that this is ridiculous.
No. Not firm in ridiculousness. I just am busy.
That's true.
You think 2 kids is enough to keep you off the podcast?
Well, I count
what's-
also as someone that
Yes.
she's
3
raising.
kids
So.
that you're raising,
And a
Erin?
dog.
Very good
And a
point.
dog.
Very
yes.
good point.
Jack is dumb as dirt, but he is.
That's the dog.
Yes.
Not
Yeah,
the kid.
Jack is my dog. He is an Australian Shepherd. He's named after C.S. Lewis, and I hoped he would be wise, and he is not wise. He is foolish.
He
but
is cute, though,
he
and
is cute.
fluffy.
Very fluffy.
Very fluffy, yes. Very fluffy.
But no, Rose is hanging out with her family tonight. They've got some travels going on, and so she's taking some time off. And Erin is coming. Erin has the same degree I do. We went to the same Bible college, and we both love the Bible. I met her in a zipline tower, and she wouldn't go, so I pushed her out,
That's also true.
and she left me for it.
Is she also an ordained minister like myself?
No,
Oh,
she
no.
is neither ordained nor a minister.
No.
Just
I'm a
me and
mom.
you, John, right?
Just you and me, except yours doesn't really count.
You think you have friends, and then they cut your knees off right on the podcast.
I mean, yours counts. The government has said so. Well, we are continuing our conversation, really going back to the story at Caesarea Philippi, where we left Jesus. He has gone all the way out of Israel, wandering out of the traditional lands where the Jewish people's culture is dominant, and he has moved into what has become Gentile territory. Once upon a time, the tribe of Dan was up there, although they weren't supposed to be, but they had moved up that direction. And the tribe of Dan is a mysterious group of people. If you read in the book of Revelation, where it talks about the thousands of each of the tribes of Israel, in the 144,000 witnesses, you'll notice that the tribe of Dan is missing from that list. And so there's a lot of shenanigans that people have invented or thought up or have questions, I suppose, that go back to this territory. And really, it goes all the way back to the book of Genesis, in the stories about Genesis 6, where the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and behold, they were fair. And throughout Jewish history, they have always connected that event of the fall of the Watchers to a mountain called Mount Hermon. And the place where we left Jesus was at the very foot of that mountain at a spring-side temple to a god called Pan. And he is gone into the belly of the beast, so to speak. He is in paganism central, kind of a thing. And there he is asking Peter, who do people say that I am? And Peter gives this beautiful answer, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And this is as clear as a bell. It's interesting to me that Jesus would go all the way out to Caesarea Philippi. It's not close, and it's on the other side of a gigantic swamp at the time. So if you can imagine them moving their way through the marshes on these little roads, trying to keep up out of the wetlands that are going to eventually become the River Jordan, and up into the mountains of Syria, where Mount Hermon is located. That's where he's gone. It's not fast. It takes more than a day to walk up there. So it's not like he just pulled into the local Wendy's, because it was convenient. He's gone there on purpose. And I believe that this really connects back to the information that we talked about in our territorial spirits episodes, that when we think of the spiritual world, we often think of them as beings without place, just nebulous spiritual beings, and where they are we don't really think about. But they are a part of the real world, and the Bible does talk about them as physically, or not physically, but spiritually present on the earth, that they are not omnipresent, that they take up a particular location. And throughout the Old Testament we find that demonic beings, or fallen evil creatures, set up residences, temples, idols, are really possessed objects, or that's what the ancients believed that they were. And so Jesus has walked all the way up there into a place that is famous for its statues, for its idols. Even today, there are niches carved into the stone around the cave of Pan, where they had idols and sat them up, and they were danced in front of, and sacrifices were made for them. And inside of the cave is this great pool of black water that they would throw the carcasses of the slain sacrifices into. And the sacrifices would sink down into the underworld. Ancient peoples connected waters with the underworld. And that may seem strange to you and me, but it wasn't to them, because they knew there were waters above them because it rained. And they knew there were waters beneath them because they dug wells and hit water. And so when we think of the underworld, we typically use fire, like to describe that world. But ancient people were very comfortable using the imagery of water. The book of Jonah makes big use of this. Jonah seems to think he's been sucked down below even the underworld. He's like, I couldn't even die properly. This is embarrassing. And so this is a place that was considered to be a gateway to hell, to the underworld, and it was celebrated as such.
That's something that I can take to heart, because it's logical, which is pretty much how I act and stuff. But the water, you can't see under it. You can't really go through it very well. You can't hold your breath long enough to get anywhere worth anything. So it's just chaos. It's something that you can't control. Jesus does that when he goes out on the boat, and that shows his dominance over the underworld. It's a great symbol, but it's also a good way to speak about these kind of things, because if you were to ask me what's at the bottom of the ocean, even 10 feet down, I haven't the foggiest idea. And the ocean goes over 1,000 feet down. So how are we supposed to be able to control this type of thing? I think it's a good way to think about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that imagery goes all the way back to the first page of the Bible. When God creates the earth, it says that the earth was wild and waste. But chaos. You won't find a moment, though, where God creates water. It's part of the assumption that when God made the world, that's what was there.
Sure.
It was this primordial chaos, storm-driven sea. And God brings order out of the chaos. The Babylonians, for instance, worshipped a god who had fought the chaos beasts. And always they're presented as ocean-like beings.
Right.
And it honestly makes sense. Like, if you don't know about tides and the moon pulling on the sea, why is the ocean attacking the shore?
Right.
Like, why is it
And retreating
constantly moving?
and attacking.
Yeah, there's a bit of mystery that's going on. And even though they didn't understand scientifically what was going on, they used these realities as ways to talk about the supernatural world. And so they became more than what they were. They became symbols. They became stories. And that's not to say it's a lie. That's to say it becomes myth. It becomes more than it is itself. And I mean the word myth in the way C.S. Lewis uses the word, and not in the way that most people would take the word. It's a true-ish story, a story that is telling a truth. And so when Jesus is there, it's as unexpected a place for him to go as you could possibly imagine. And the story seems to indicate that he doesn't leave right away. There are Jewish people up there. There are people who would like to hear Jesus' ministry and what he has to say. But he doesn't just beat feet back to Galilee as soon as he's done. As a matter of fact, the gospel says 6 days later, he ascends the mountain with his disciples.
So when you say that it's the least probable place for him to go,
Well, in the area.
you're saying that just because it's hard to get to, it's out of the way, there's nobody there, there's no people there.
Oh, there's
really,
lots of people there, but they're not people who would be interested in a Jewish Messiah at all.
Right, so he's not going to his people.
Not
or
at
the
all.
people that would welcome him.
Yeah, and Jesus has kind of made a big deal about this. I've been sent to the lost sheep of Israel. I could go wander everywhere, but I'm not. I'm focused in here on what's going on. And so what it seems to me that Jesus is doing is just like God did in the Old Testament. He is bringing his power into enemy-occupied
That was my
territory.
point. If you look at it from the territorial spirits standpoint, it is the hub to go. It's the best place to plant your flag.
That's right.
It would be the most prominent way that Jesus could say, "I am over you."
Yeah, it's a way of showing I'm not afraid. You believe yourself to be incredibly powerful, but I go where I want.
I have a question that's like completely off of the Transfiguration. But
Oh,
I don't
go
know if
for
we
it,
have
yeah.
Too much time to get into it. But when Jesus asks, "Who am I?" and Peter responds, "You are the Christ," that's Peter saying it from himself. He says, "Who do others say I am?" And he says, "I don't know, John the Baptist, some other people." "Who do you say I am, Peter?" And he says, "You are the Christ." What was Peter like? What's going through Peter's mind at that point? Like, what is he feeling? What is going on? Because he's in this area, which is, the hub of the evil.
Well, it seems to be that Peter hasn't said this out loud before, or that's the impression that you get from the text. Almost like it's an unspoken thing that they're longing for. You almost get the idea that Jesus has been showing and not telling, which is very typical Jesus.
Sure.
But you almost get this moment that he's surrounded by evil, and it loosens his tongue. I'm going to say what's true. I'm surrounded by what's wrong with the world. I'm surrounded by paganism in all of its ugly forms and the worship of this goat god Nephilim thing, Pan. And I believe you are the answer to this spiritual wickedness in the heavenly places.
It's so weird because there's such a level of surrender that Peter is going through by saying that. I mean, he's giving up all of his, is that out of desperation or is that out of motivation or somehow he's saying that? And the reason I say that is because just, a couple verses later, Jesus says what he has to do from now. And Peter, I think, takes over himself and is saying, "That doesn't make any sense, Jesus, you can't do that." And Jesus seems to have the complete opposite effect on Peter that he did before. "Blessed are you, Peter." Now he says, "Get behind me, Satan."
Yeah.
So
I think Peter is definitely saying what he thinks. Like that's where he's at. I'm going to protect you. You are special. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he has an idea of what the Messiah is supposed to do, that he's supposed to be a conquering king. marching on Jerusalem, bringing about this kingdom. And it's all of the stories that he's been raised with have flavored the way Peter thinks about the Messiah.
But I find it hard to believe that he just got lucky with saying the right thing.
Oh, I don't think it was luck. I think it was observation. He's seen and he's heard Jesus. This is what Jesus has been leading him to. He's proved it to him.
For a brief moment there, he is, exemplified by God, by Jesus, that says, yes, that's what I'm talking about. You got it. And then literally moments later, it seems like, or the very next passage, he reverts right back to where he was.
Yeah, he doesn't stay in perfection very long.
But what is he doing? What is not the formula? I'm not asking but what is he doing right? What does Jesus see when Peter responds that way? That he says, that's what I'm talking about.
Even in Peter's desire to critique Jesus there, I think you can say it comes from a good heart. Like he wants to protect him.
Definitely.
But you also hear in Jesus' voice that there is an enemy who is trying to stop something that he seems to suspect is going on. And so Satan is going to pull his disciples to resist the will of Jesus for all the right reasons, bringing them to the wrong conclusion.
Yeah.
Erin, just so you're aware of the rules, jump in anytime you want to.
I was about to raise my hand.
Don't raise your hand and don't say, can I ask a question?
So treat me like we're at home, where you tell me to be quiet and you have something to say.
I can show you which button turns his mic off, too, if you want to do that. But
okay.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
But where we are is the foot of Mount Hermon. Now, Mount Hermon is the highest peak in the area. And actually, it is home to the tallest or the highest temple in the biblical world, 2,814 feet above sea level. Whoa. There is a temple called Qasr Antar. And it is built by the Romans to celebrate the story of the Watchers. Those who swore an oath proceed from here is carved on a stele that was inside the temple.
So about what time period was that?
It would have been after Jesus, but it shows that it was part of the biblical culture. People in this place were remembering this story. And the book of Enoch talks about this from before the time of Jesus. This isn't something that we've invented and are reading back onto the text. This is something that archaeology has uncovered, and literary devices like Enoch have shown us that this is the way Peter was thinking about this place. Just like he had a cultural assumption about who the Messiah was, he had a cultural assumption about where he was, that this was the mountain that is ground zero for the Watchers, for the host of darkness. Now, there was a man named Sir Charles Warren who discovered this temple. It's on like an oval of stone high up on the summit of Mount Hermon, and it was built in a temple that had no roof, and it never had a roof. And the idea was to welcome down whatever is up there, a way to celebrate a meeting of heaven and earth. Now, if the name Charles Warren is familiar to you, or Sir Charles Warren, not to steal his honorific, but he was the guy who was in charge of the Metropolitan Police during the Jack the Ripper story. So if you're into true crime and that kind of a thing, you may have come across this guy before. After he proved rather brilliantly that he could not catch serial killers, he decided to dabble in archaeology and found a pretty cool place up there. But it shows how the ancient world was thinking about mountains. Whether or not that is the actual mountain where the Watchers came down is moot. It doesn't matter. It's because it is the mythology, because it is the story. It is what the people believed. And I don't believe they believed those things just out of their own creative minds. There were attempts to talk to the demonic, just like there are today. There were witches and warlocks and priests and priestesses, and there were oracles, and there were attempts to talk, and they communicated. The oracle at Delphi is a famous example of this. And remember that the host of darkness doesn't always tell the truth. It lies. It weaves together its own stories in mockery of God's own story. And so what you have here is, at the very least, Jesus in territory where he sticks out like a sore thumb. Now, Mount Hermon is not only connected to the fall of the Watchers before the flood. and the Nephilim that are created in Genesis 6 through the perversion there. But it's also connected to a Nephilim who existed after the flood that we find in the conquest stories, a giant called Og, which is the best giant name of all time. He is a king, and it tells us that his kingdom is over Bashan, from the city where he was ruling all the way to Mount Hermon.
And sorry, again, like what time period?
This is
that?
Joshua.
Okay.
So right after the Exodus.
Okay.
And so this is a place that is connected to the giants, to the Nephilim, to this supernatural world. And it is thick in the air, even for the pagans. Later on, the Romans are going to build that temple up on top.
Yeah.
And who knows if there wasn't a cult there before that who was celebrating without that particular temple. That would make sense to me. But it's because ancient people believed that high places are windows into the supernatural world.
And even if that's not the truth, like you're saying, like
Scientific reality.
right, or just the fact that they need to, you see a lot of shows and whatnot where it's like you have to get it right, you have to be high enough, you have to be in the right geographical location and then do the right spell, whatever, to get there. We're not saying that like that is what it has to be, but the fact that that's what the people believed then can indicate to you the reason why they're doing the things they're doing.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so all through the Bible, you have instances where they'll say things like they tore down the high places, or they went to sacrifice in the high places, or they went up to worship. Ancient peoples connected this elevation with leaving behind normal life and ascending into a special place that is set aside for worship.
I think there's a lot of relevancy to that, especially around here, kind of with what you've been preaching through a little bit with like the baptism and communion, simply due to the fact that the tradition that is being carried out should remind you a little bit about what we're talking about here. You're trying to leave behind, like you were just saying, what you're going through day to day and get to a special place.
Right.
It doesn't mean a physical place where you go or whatever, but just a frame of mind that is different and set apart. And it is frustrating that it seems like we just argue about which mountain it was or argue about
Yeah.
which juice to take. But the idea behind the tradition is the same today with what you take with communion or baptism or even your prayer closet or whatever you want to talk about. It's the same thought process that these people were going through with
That's
the high
right.
places idea. But, they're utilizing it to get with some of the demonic presence. But Jesus is going to show that his territory doesn't need to be in a certain location. That
That's right.
You
Yeah.
can be in your basement and cry out, or
Yeah,
you can be in the
if there
belly of
was-
a fish and cry out.
If there was one place where you would have thought God's power was lesser to a pagan mind, it would have been atop Mount Hermon.
Right.
Instead, I think Jesus purposefully goes straight there to show, I am the God of all creation. I am the maker of heaven and of earth. And there is nowhere that I cannot go and do what I want to do.
It's so funny how, sorry, Aaron, it's so funny how, real life imitates what God has created. And I say that to be kind of funny and ironic, but when you're thinking of like a magician, it's like, yeah, you can do the act when everything is doing fine, but then a real magician will like tie his hands together and then put himself in a box and then do something else. And it's like, he's giving up every opportunity to have an advantage. And then boom, he pulls off the trick, right? It's the same thought that Jesus is doing here. This isn't a trick or magic. It's real life.
That's right.
But Jesus is doing the same thing. He's like, okay, Satan, now put one arm behind my back and now tie my feet together. And then I still win.
Yeah.
Like it's over.
Yeah, it's strange, I think, for most people to think of Jesus' ministry as being seen by the unseen world.
Yeah.
They think of it only as a human story. But there are so many instances where the veil is pulled back and you get the assumption, oh, no, the host is all around. They're aware of what's going on. Jesus, for instance, is tempted by Satan in the wilderness. He goes out to the place that is connected to death and destruction, a place where humans don't live, and is symbolically connected in the stories and the myths of ancient peoples. This is a way of showing as well as telling. And we have this in our own culture as well. The cross, right? Your church may have a cross, but it's not the one Jesus died on. But it still is connected to that event, not because it has bits of the actual cross, but because the memory is there.
Yes.
It links these thoughts together.
You know, something I was thinking of during your sermon when you were talking about the memory and how powerful the memory is. If you guys haven't listened, just go to Stillwater Community Church and listen to John's last sermon if you want to. But shout out to John.
Yeah, put that plug in there.
But anyway,
I paid him $10 for that.
worth every penny. But
I will double your salary
Thank
as
you.
a
Appreciate
podcaster.
it. But anyway, you're talking about the memory, and it's something that was so interesting to me because the memory is the only way that a human being can basically transcend time.
Yes.
There's nothing that we can do to look forward in time. There's really nothing you can do to go backwards in time, but the memory of it allows us to really time travel. And that is such a powerful thing. You kind of hinted at that a little bit on Sunday, but I just think that's so powerful. And you're going to see part of this transfiguration where it's almost as if time is taken away from these people and they're able to see people that have died, you know, centuries before, or at least years before. And it's our way when we do communion or baptism or any of these traditions that you can transcend time and have a glimpse of the way God sees your life. And that's something that you can't comprehend as a human being, but it's sure fun to try.
Yeah, when the Jewish people were celebrating Passover, or even today when they celebrate Passover, you'll notice they don't use words like they use words like we. They are placing themselves in the story. When I take people into the waters of baptism, it is not a they thing, it is a we thing. All believers that have followed the Lord in baptism have come to this point and in this moment have made this statement. And it is a unity. Even though it is separated by time, there is a oneness to what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think the same is true in a lot of, for instance, what's going to happen, spoiler alert, but Jesus is going to meet Elijah and Moses on the mountain, both of whom are famous for having met God in the Old Testament on mountains. This is purposeful connecting of the ideas. Now, in the Old Testament, this idea of high places, and whether you believe it's Mount Hermon or not, doesn't really matter. It could be a different
Are you
mountain.
going to tell the other mountain that is the popular view?
Yes. If you go to Israel, there is a hill on the plains of Megiddo.
A hill.
A hill where Nazareth is. It's up in the air. It's pretty big. And next to it is a really cool-looking mountain called Mount Tabor. It's famous for the place where Barak and Deborah battled. It's conical. It looks like a mountain should look in the area. It's very beautiful. But in the 3rd century, there was a man named Origen, who was a famous early church father. And
Did he start it?
Yeah, he did. I'm picking up what you did there. I'm seeing it. We find that he said that the transfiguration occurred on Mount Tabor. He said that was a tradition that he had heard, and because he is an early church father, people just kind of rolled with it. I think it has to do a lot with the business of pilgrimage. If you build a church and you say, this is where something happened, people who have come as pilgrims will venerate that site, and they will give money to. That's why there are 4 heads of John the Baptist floating around out there. Because
That's awkward.
he's a very strange-looking man. They're not really the heads of John the Baptist, but they are said to be.
Right.
And they bring income, and they bring the story to the people. Now, the Gospel never say what mountain this occurs on, but Jesus is at Mount Hermon when this event is taking place. And so to me, it makes sense that he doesn't book it down to Nazareth, climb another mountain randomly down there.
Did you say that 6 days later he climbed the mountain?
Yeah, the way that it says this is that he is there, and then on the 6th day he ascends the mountain.
Okay, so it's not like 6 days he could have traveled and he got to
Well, he would have to be moving
Mount
pretty quick.
Tabor.
Never mind. To me,
I mean,
it
he is
doesn't
God.
really matter. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
He can go anywhere he wants. Ask Philip, right? He just appears in the wilderness for the Ethiopian eunuch. But the idea of worshiping on a high place is very connected to the Psalms, to the way that early Jewish people worshipped. There's actually an entire set of the Psalms called the Psalms of Ascent. And they are music that people sang as they climbed their way to Jerusalem. Now, for me, I think of up as north because I have lots of maps and I love maps. But up to Israel meant uphill. Erin, do you remember when we were in Kanawha County and people kept laughing at us because we would say we're going up to Charleston?
Yeah, but it was down.
They would say down, even though
'Cause it was
Charleston was
downriver.
north of us.
Yeah.
It's downriver, and so everyone called it down. And it's because they lived in a place where the direction was defined by this massive river that flowed through the town. It was a much older way of describing the world around them. And the Bible does the same. It talks about going up to Jerusalem. Rose wants to know how the recording is going.
About halfway done, Rose.
We're about halfway done, Rose. Thank you for checking on us, Mom. All right. Would you read Psalm 121, verses 1 and 2, Erin?
Yes. I lift my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. Who sings that song?
Well, it's a very old song.
Well, yes, but
David, I'm assuming?
no, I mean like the praise and worship song.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Oh, sorry. Listeners, tell us who sings that song.
I lift my eyes into the where?
Hills.
The hills.
The hills, the high places. And specifically, my help comes from the Lord. That mountains were seen as a place where the earth rose to meet the heavens. And so it's a poetic way of describing kind of what Eden used to be. Even Eden is described as the mountain of the Lord in the book of Ezekiel, a place where the heavens and the earth met. And so these songs reminded worshipers that the Creator alone is king, and that all the hills, the trees, the stars, the streams, all of it echoes his glory. Humanity is made in his image, and we are worshiping him. And so they called these the songs of ascent, the songs to sing as you went into the temple. And even the temple is up, lifted up above the rest of Jerusalem. It's set apart. So let's jump now into Matthew 17. Let's get into the meat of the text. This is verses 1 through 8 of Matthew 17.
And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, his clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. And it was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their face and were terrified. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise and have no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only.
So they climbed the mountain, apparently to the summit, or at least pretty high up on the summit of the mountain. And there they see Jesus change from earthly garb into some sort of heavenly glory. He is exuding light in a glory cloud kind of a way. And then standing next to him, not having climbed the mountain with them, but as though they were waiting for Jesus, are Elijah and Moses. This is very strange. Were they waiting up there the whole time? Who else is there? Is there a spiritual world round about the Lord that is hidden from the eyes of Peter, James, and John? Well, apparently the Father is also present, who moves a cloud to show his presence and speaks. By the way, you should totally check out those 3 phrases that God the Father speaks there. There's some cool stringing of pearls going on there. But there is more than meets the eye. There is a supernatural audience to what's taking place.
So many questions. I don't know what we're going to get into first.
Well,
and
go
last,
ahead.
But the idea, I think we alluded to it before with the whole time situation. But the idea that Elijah and Moses are there, and then first of all, how does Peter know who they are?
I assume they wore name tags.
That's my question, because they don't have pictures of them. There was no Kodak pictures of them.
That's a great question.
And there's no
I've never
paintings,
thought
right?
that.
Is there a painting of this is
No.
what Moses looked like?
As
It's
a
like
matter of fact,
caricature of him holding
famously, there was an Italian sculptor who sculpted Moses with horns because of a mistranslation of a word that meant like shining light.
Nice.
And anyway, but no, this is not through through name tags, probably. I mean, the Bible doesn't say they didn't have name tags, but I'm assuming they didn't. And instead, what I think happens is Jesus greets them by name.
I was say, unless Jesus says something about it.
Remember that line there? It says he was transformed before them, or transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun. His clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. And so they seem to be close enough to Jesus and yet far enough away that they are not close enough to hear exactly what is going on. There is a conversation that Jesus steps into. And this brings up questions of time, Martin, because both of these men, Elijah and Moses, are famous for having met God on the mountain. And Moses was on the mountain a very long time. Elijah was on the mountain for a very long time. And so the question is this all happening at once?
Right.
Or is this an event that takes place later? And the answer is obviously, I have no idea, and neither do you. There is nothing in the text that answers that. We do know that time is tricky when talking about God. It gets you in weird places because we are used to talking about time in a particular way, and God shatters all of the convenient ways to have that discussion. And so there is a lot of mystery that goes on here. So if you're a time travel kind of a guy, I will not rain on that parade.
Well, it is such an interesting thing to think about because, time is the one thing that really can't be stopped and can't be slowed down or manipulated, and we understand that. But, Stephen Hawking famously had a party for all time travelers. And he put it out there, and you would think that no matter what, throughout the eternity of time, if that were available to us in the future at some point throughout eternity of infinity, that somebody would see that and then be able to travel back to the. So, like, if somebody were to come back in time, it would have already happened.
Yeah,
but it wouldn't have
Maybe they
happened.
just didn't like Stephen Hawking.
Could be, but it hadn't have happened, but it would have happened, but it can't have happened because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah,
So
time is weird, man. Even talking about it gets funky.
And so when you think about it logically, when you're thinking like, well, okay, but Moses was there before, but yet he's still there now, or he's hasn't been there yet because he's already been. And it's like there's so much manipulation of your mind and stuff because we can't understand all of it.
Yeah.
What I can pull away from this is to say, remember, Moses' story ends very badly, right? He's not permitted to go into the promised land. He's kind of left for no burial takes place really for Moses. He dies and no one knows where his body is. And Elijah famously ascends into the heaven in a fiery chariot. And so both of these men have unusual endings to their stories. But here, they are part of the conversation and the plan that Jesus has for the crucifixion. They're not cast away. They are with Jesus. Even after Moses dies and fails, he is still dear to the heart of the Lord. And here he is in a moment where, by the way, this is where the whole gospel changes. It's after the declaration of his messiahship at Caesarea Philippi and the ascension. Everything from this point is beelining for Calvary.
Unless, of course, the Moses event happened before he died, but then is in the future.
Well, at the very least, it could have happened before, but also after, because it's happening here as well, right? So this is where I said, like, it gets weird. But Moses is there.
Put the perspective on
And
it.
Elijah is there. These, by the way, are the two other great miracle workers of the Old Testament. These are the men who have made the kingdom of God physically present in the past through the acts of ministries of miracles. And so there they all are. Those three together on top of the mountain talking about we don't know. There's a mystery here.
The interesting part again is we come back to who's the one that says something. Who's the earthly person that pipes up?
That'd be Peter.
It's Peter. And he does something which I think is very swell of him to do. Hey, let me get you a tent. He has the same heart that he had when he was trying to prevent Jesus from going to his death. And Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan."
Now, you're not going to like where I'm going to take this.
Now he has the same heart here, and Jesus basically says absolutely nothing about it, yes?
Yeah,
Well, but doesn't God, it says he is still speaking when behold, God speaks.
God
It's almost
cuts him
like,
off.
hey, stop. I've got something to do here. Like, poor Peter.
I think that Peter is so eager to do something that he fails to actually be present in the moment. Not in the last episode we did a lot of application, and
Right.
you got to have the application. But listen, there are also moments where you need to sit in the presence of God.
Well, I think that's a huge point to what I'm trying to get across with this, is because Peter does something. Jesus is very happy with what he does. Blessed are you. Thank you for saying that out of the goodness of your heart. He does something else where he says, don't die, don't go and get yourself killed. And Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. Now he's acting in the same capacity by trying to do what is right and be hospitable and have a good, kind heart. And basically nothing happens. Jesus doesn't say yes
something
or
happens.
no.
Did you catch what happens after the Father speaks? It says they fall on their faces and are terrified.
Sure.
There is a rebuke from the voice of the Father to them. This is one of those moments when, for instance, I will not forgive them. I will, but I'm mad about it. Why do I get to hear what Peter had to say, and I don't get to hear what Moses and Elijah had to say? Of all the guys talking on this mountain, Peter is the one I am least interested in hearing his opinion.
True.
But the old expression is that Peter is the apostle with a foot-shaped mouth.
Yeah.
He constantly says the wrong thing, but you always come away feeling that Peter is a doer. Peter has a good heart. Even in his denial of Jesus, he is eager to see what's happening. He is in the there's a depth to Peter's character that trying to pigeonhole him into a dum-dum doesn't really work very well.
But I guess the whole point of this is he's acting in the same way 3 different times in this very short passage. And Jesus shows very different reactions to what he's doing.
That's right.
And so we can't just simply say what the actions that he is doing is what's causing the good or the bad. Because
That's
he's
right.
basically doing the same action just in a different capacity.
What is it that the Old Testament says? For everything there is a season,
Right.
a time. Maybe that was an oldies song, but I think it's
There
both.
is a season.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say though that maybe it looks like he is trying to do the right thing, but really it's a thing of his heart may be in the right place, but his focus isn't. Like,
I think that's true.
and like his will is not the same as the Father's. Like that's why he's getting different reactions.
I think that's 100% accurate. But what I'm trying to get at is, how did he get it right the first time and then got it wrong the second 2 times?
Think of real life with you and I. And this is where legalism falls short. The idea that there is an approved, always correct answer.
Yeah.
Life doesn't work that way. Every husband in the world knows that you have said things that got you in trouble, even though they seemed correct in your head.
Sure.
It was the wrong time or the wrong way. I can say that because my wife is here. That's a mean look, Erin.
And I understand that. And I'm not trying to get to like what he did. Like, oh, he just said the wrong word or he said it at the wrong time. But there was a way that Jesus saw behind his actions and said, yes, this is why it's right. Not because of what you did, not because of how you said it or when you said it or where you said it or what the action was, but somehow, as you said, his will was aligned with what Jesus was trying to do. And then when he tries to get his buddy not to die, Jesus says, you don't understand. That's what I have to do. Like, my will is to die because I'm doing the Father's will, and your will is for me to live, so you're wrong. So it doesn't matter what you say, how you say it, where you say it. You are not in line with me.
And that should be our goal. When the Lord speaks clearly, and he told Peter, Lord knows how many times, I'm going down there, I'm going to be killed, and I'm going to rise the 3rd day. And they were shocked that it happened. It's almost as though it went in one ear and out the other.
Right.
They have set aside the words of God for their own opinion. And we do that constantly with the scriptures themselves. There is some construction things here that Jesus is doing that are very odd. For instance, where are the other disciples?
Yeah.
Was there an awkward moment when Jesus was like, we're going up that mountain, and like most of them were like, oh, I don't want to go up there, and only 3 of them wanted to go, or maybe God only selected those 3 to go? Whatever happened, it is very strange because when Moses goes up the mountain, it lists 3 people who went up the mountain with him. Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu are named. And so when Jesus goes up the mountain, there are three people who are named. That it would have stood out to someone very familiar with Moses' story. And so when you're looking at this, you should recognize, oh my goodness, I think that there is a connection here to this Old Testament story. Both Moses and Elijah are famous for mountain meetings with God. Moses took three named people, so does Jesus. When Moses comes down off the mountain from having been up there, his face shone with light because he was in the presence of God. Jesus, though, he's not shining because he's in the presence of God. He's shining.
He is God.
He is God. There's also an interesting thought here because there is a connection that Moses goes up the mountain on the sixth day, just like Jesus when he goes up this mountain on the sixth day. So I don't think it was an accident. I think it's purposeful.
Do you think that the early church, or like once we had these texts, that people were putting these things together?
The author of Hebrews certainly was.
Okay.
There is a whole section of the book of Hebrews about how Jesus is the better Moses. And Matthew, for sure, is putting that together because of all of the Moses-y type things that he draws your attention to. And I think it's a part where God actually did this. He is artistic in what he did. It's not that he's telling a story. He's making the story again, but this time fulfilled. And so there is a connection here. Actually, let's go back and look at that passage where Moses comes down shining. Let's go to Exodus 34, 29 through 33.
That's your cue, Erin.
Okay. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hands, as he came down from the mountain, Moses did not know that his skin of his face shone because he had been talking with God. Aaron and all the people of Israel saw Moses, and behold, the skin of his face shone, and they were afraid to come near. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all of the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses talked with them. And afterward all the people of Israel came near, and he commanded them all that the Lord had spoken with him on Mount Sinai. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face.
So here you have something physically happens to Moses because he is in the presence of the heavens. He begins to shine with light. This is a way of talking about, we even use the word glory, that there is a glory about him. And apparently for the rest of his days, Moses wore this veil in memory of what had happened so that people wouldn't see it slowly disappear. I think there's a connection here between the veiling of Moses' face and the building of the tabernacles, the tents that Peter is talking about putting up here on the mountain. I also think there's a connection to, there's a feast of tabernacles. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on here. And it should keep you entertained throughout the week as you dig into this text on your own. But what you can't deny is that this feels like a better Moses.
Yeah.
He isn't going to see God. This is God having come down to him. And even Moses' story is again brought up in the New Testament because Moses is still welcome and present in the presence of God. Here's a glimpse behind what happens after death, that the Christian is still part of God's plan, that there is a not a retirement home in heaven where you are put out to pasture, but there is a job, a goal, a place waiting for you behind what's going on. And so this is happening, I believe, on Mount Hermon or Mount Bashan. If you think it's Mount Tabor, it's Mount Tabor. It doesn't matter. The Bible just says it's on a mountain, and the symbolism works anyway.
Yeah.
Mount Bashan, though, pops up a couple other times. Let's look at another verse that is very interesting because it has a connection to Moses in what's going on. Let's look at Psalms 68, verses 15 through 17.
O mountain of God, mountain of Bashan, O many-peaked mountain, mountain of Bashan, why do you look with hatred, O many-peaked mountain, at the mount that God desired for his abode? Yes, where the Lord will dwell forever. The chariots of God are twice 10,000, thousands upon thousands. The Lord is among them. Sinai is now in the sanctuary.
So Mount Bashan is another name for Mount Hermon, and here it's described as the rival of Jerusalem. Why are you looking with envy, O mountain of Bashan? Remember, Mount Bashan is wrapped in these stories of the darkness, but it calls it the mountain of God. There is a sense of reclaiming that which was lost, that this is part of a greater whole. And I want you to notice what happens there at the end. The Lord is among them in Jerusalem, and Sinai is now where?
In the sanctuary.
In the sanctuary. No, it's not. Sinai is a mountain somewhere in the wilderness, right? This is the wrong place. It's not in Jerusalem. What's he talking about here? He's saying these places, even though geographically they are not the same place, they are one thing. These are ways of talking about the same thing, that the same God who is present on Sinai is present in the temple. The same God who is present in the temple is present on Mount Bashan, and that is the one place you would have thought that he would never appear. Remember, the Jewish people are big on ritual uncleanness. I will not go there because it is an unclean place. This is the king of unclean places, and Jesus treads it under his feet. And he brings the voice of God and the glory of God to shine out again, even in the midst of enemy-occupied territory. I just want to stand back and be like, praise God.
Yeah.
This is big. This is the fact that God is with us. It's not about going on a pilgrimage to a specific site. That's what the pagan world does. That's the idea behind all of the Baal worship that was going on. But the Lord is present not just in special places, but his temple is now with his people. You are the temple of the living God. That wherever you go, the Spirit of God goes with you. And we tread into the darkness, and we bring the gospel of the light of Jesus Christ into the realm of the darkness, and we shine like lights in the darkness because God is in us and with us. And he infuses the things that we do with his power and his glory. Are we going to step out of line and say dumb things? Peter certainly did. But every time he does, he is brought right back into the will of God, into presence and fellowship with God. Moses, you'd say, well, Moses missed his chance. Apparently not.
Yeah.
He's right there. Elijah makes sense, right? He goes up he gets special delivery, right? He's brought down. A fiery chariot delivers him up there. This is a sign to me of the greatness and the goodness and the power of God over the host of darkness. I think there's a lot here. If you're into weird corners of the Bible, this one has everything you could want. It's got every randomness seems to be popping up in this story. Go ahead, Erin. You got a thought?
Well, I was also thinking that this is like a pinnacle point. You said that after this, everything starts speeding up, heading to the crucifixion, and like he's going up to a high place. It's an enemy territory. It was almost like when you're watching a movie and the music gets like stronger and stronger, and it's like, that kind of thing. It just made me think that.
But what's interesting,
I think you're supposed to think that.
Yeah.
It's present in the text.
And I get what you're saying, but it's confusing to me how Jesus, after he's at Caesarea Philippi, then says, it's time for me to go to Calvary and be killed. And Peter says, no, please don't. But then when you get to the cross, it seems like he's in the midst of all the evil. He's in the hub of the evil. And he says, okay, time for me to go die now. When he goes to die, then the evil are like glad that he dies, right? Like they're celebrating that he's on the cross and they have killed him. That doesn't make sense to me. He tells them he's in the middle of all of them.
We're going to get to that in a couple episodes. That's actually coming.
He's face to face with the main guy and says, I'm going to go die now. And then they're happy that he dies. Like what? I just said I'm better than you and what my plan is, and then you're confused with my plan. Like I don't get it.
There is confusion. Jesus is going to specifically address this, both before and after the crucifixion. So it's going to come up before and after. But you're right.
But he says if they would have known, they would have not crucified the Lord of glory.
They
What
did
is going
not
on?
understand what was happening. He's going to march on Calvary. He's going to be killed. He's going to Jerusalem. But we can't let it happen on his terms.
Well, yeah, because, the Jews thought the Messiah was coming to set up an earthly kingdom, and they were thinking like physical, like Jesus was going to overthrow the Romans and set up his kingdom. And so I don't know, when Jesus was talking about dying, probably all the other times they were like, he doesn't really mean that. And then at this point, like, they're like, what? This isn't what you're supposed to do here.
Yeah, Jesus is going to talk specifically about this. And
Yeah.
this requires its own longer conversation, which you should have with your friends at the coffee shop. Take Martin's question and ask it. What's happening here? This seems to be a disconnect. Let's look at a couple other verses, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's go to Exodus 24, verses 15 through 18.
Is that me again?
It's you.
Then Moses went up on the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain.
Do you notice that's the same as in the what's that word? Transfiguration. When God speaks, there is this cloud that's moving. It says a bright cloud overshadowed them, which is weird.
Yeah.
Bright clouds don't normally happen, and then they don't overshadow you if they're
Because
bright.
Jesus was the shining one, and
It's like the sun
God
is on
was
the
the
wrong
cloud.
side of the clouds. Never mind. Go ahead.
The glory of the Lord dwelt on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days.
6 days. This is the same time that Jesus waits before he ascends up into Sinai. If you take it further back and you take a look at it through the lens of the creation account, what is created on the 6th day? It's mankind. This is a number that is associated with us. And so, does it have to do this? No, but God chose to do it this way. Keep going.
Now the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel. Moses entered the cloud and went up on the mountain, and Moses was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights.
This is where the time travel thing comes in. People wonder, what was he doing up there for 40 days
Yeah.
and 40 nights?
What was he eating? Drinking?
Yeah, well, obviously sweet tea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because he's in heaven. But the idea then of, okay, so you're up there, the 40 days and 40 nights thing is another significant number, but he's in the clouds. He's gone up, and it takes him away. What is happening? Is he physically there? What's going on? There's mystery here. And it's there to delight you, and it's also there because it really happened. That this is part of the story. The glory of God is revealed. And so don't just think Jesus went up on the mountain and was like, oh, I'm so glad I'm away from all the people. Now I can turn the lights up. He is making a theological statement through the transfiguration, and one that connects to the idea of Messiah.
I try to highlight these anytime I can think of one, just because I think it is so relevant to today. But when you see modern art kind of reflecting what God has created or put into creation, and when you're talking about Moses being up there for 40 days, but it seems like he's only talking to Jesus and Elijah for a brief moment of time, maybe an hour or whatever, but it's the idea. I can't remember what the movie is called, but the one where they go into space, and it's really Matthew McConaughey, I think, is in it. Really big movie, Interstellar.
Okay.
Interstellar, the movie. But when they go onto the planet, every minute they're there is like a year on Earth or whatever, and the guy's there for like 7 minutes, and everybody on Earth is dead that he's ever known.
Whoops.
Not to ruin it, but it's the same idea with this. Like Moses is gone for 40 days, but he's only on the mountain transfigured with Jesus for maybe an hour or a day or something. Yeah. And so it just kind of puts your mind into motion, some of the things that God can do that will just really blow it out of the water. When you think of Peter, to bring it back to him, when he is saying, Jesus, don't go and die, he's utilizing his intellect and his thought process, and it's falling far, far short. To the point where Peter is going to see Jesus transfigured in just a few moments from now, from that statement. And he's going to see Moses and Elijah, and that should open his eyes that say, my will should not be done, because I have no idea what I'm doing. If you see Jesus turn into a spiritual being that is brighter than anybody else, you hear the voice of God, you see these two guys, and you somehow know who they are and what they've done for the kingdom of God, it should put your intellect and your thought process way at the very bottom. Like, why was I telling you what to do a few minutes ago? and he falls on his face and is humbled in that situation. And I think that's where Peter falls short of his humility and his submission before the will of God, to kind of wrap my whole thought through this process around why he does the same thing with the same thought, with the same mentality, he's trying to do one thing, but he's doing it the way he thinks is right.
I agree with you.
And then he turns around and gets really humbled by this when God shows up and Jesus and all of these things. And it's a beautiful way, I think, to take what Peter does and apply it to yourself.
And Peter is speaking what he knows, the best that he can.
Exactly.
But then it is manifested that ultimately a lot of Peter's actions come out of selfishness. Like, I don't want you to die, Jesus.
Right.
And so there's this element. But then when it comes down and Jesus is taken, Peter attacks, right? Cuts this man's ear off.
Right.
And then denies him. Why this giant gulf between the two actions? I'm willing to die for you turns into, I'm not willing to admit that I know you. There is something twisted, even in the apostles' heart. Mankind is not something to put your trust in.
No.
But the Father is. Jesus is. And if Peter had gotten his way, you and I would be in serious trouble. Because without the death, burial, and the resurrection of Jesus, we are of all men most miserable. There is a power that was unleashed here, and it is manifested in this light show that takes place. The Messiah is thought of in this culture through a passage in the book of Daniel, that of the cloud rider, that there is going to be a son of man who is lifted up and enthroned by the Father, by the Ancient of Days. And he's described in a very interesting way. This is the last verse. Let's look at Daniel chapter 7 and verse 9.
As I looked, thrones were placed, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames. Its wheels were burning fire.
Its wheels. Again, there's that wheeled chariot. Because remember, they're not in the temple of Jerusalem. They're in Babylon. And the Lord has gone on campaign, so to speak. The king's chariot is rolling. And this was a common conception for an Egyptian king or a Mesopotamian king. You would have a throne chariot so that while you were on campaign, you would still sit enthroned in majesty. But when the Messiah is described here, it's wonderful. God is seen as bright light, white as snow, hair like pure wool. There's an otherworldliness to seeing the Lord. And there's an otherworldliness to seeing Jesus here on the Mount of Transfiguration. The other thing that I think is fascinating, and I'll end with this, do you remember what it was that Moses wanted? He looked at God and he said, Lord, show me your glory. And there's this sense in which God says, I can't show you my glory. It will fry your little tiny brain, my friend. There's a danger here. But ultimately, Moses is brought into the glory of God. He has seen it. He is seeing it. And the same will be true of you one day, my friend. Because Jesus is the God of gods, the Lord of lords, mighty and awesome.